Briefly about me, my name is Pavel. I'm a software developer. I've been working in Odoo for about a year and a half. And today I will tell you about RPC in Odoo, and also I will show you how to use it with an example of creating a receipt for a product and improving it. There is a QR code for the question pad, so please feel free to write questions there. There are already 2 links in that question pad. Please do not remove them. Other than that, you can write your own. If you want to introduce Odoo into your own services, you can do it. Good news, because Odoo has an API. That API uses XML-RPC, which is a protocol for exchanging XML files over HTTP in order to call methods remotely, and that's all you need to know about it. Everything is happening behind the scenes. You will not see a single XML during this presentation. The main method, while working with API, is called execute_kw, and that method takes in the name of the model in Odoo, the name of the method, and a list of arguments, and then calls that method on that model with those arguments. And that gives you access to ORM methods, so methods that are shared between all models in Odoo, things like write and create. But also it gives you access to all public methods that are specific per each model, things like approve, validate, unreserve, stuff like that. Before, however, you start working with API, you need a few setup steps. First, you will need a URL pointing to a working Odoo instance. Then you will need the name of the database that is deployed on that instance. You will need a username and a password to authenticate yourself. Once you have those things, you can proceed with importing a server proxy from XML-RPC client module in Python. All the examples will be given in Python here. You can then create a proxy for the common URL, use that to authenticate yourself and obtain user ID, then create another proxy for the object URL and use that proxy with all the other data to call execute_kw method. And while working with models, you will be repeatedly doing 2 things. You will be searching and you will be reading. So search method takes in a domain, an Odoo search domain. You probably know what it is. If you don't, there is a good explanation in our docs. And returns a list of IDs that match that domain. So in this example, I'm calling models execute_kw, database username password, that always has to be there. And then stock picking is the name of the model, search is the name of the method, and I'm passing an empty domain. Empty domain means that every object will match. And in return, I will get a list of all stock pickings that I have access to. The other method is called read, and that takes in a list of IDs and returns a list of dictionaries that correspond to those objects in Odoo. So in this case, in the example, you can see that I'm calling models execute_kw, database user ID password, that always has to be there. Stock picking is the name of the model, read is the name of the method, and I'm passing one ID 6. And in return, I will get a list of dictionaries, but I passed one ID, so that will be a list of one element containing stock picking with ID 6. It will have things like name, partner ID, product ID, other fields like that. And you can see there is a bit of repetitive stuff here, so I suggest while you are working with Odoo RPC to create a few helper methods, some utils. For the purpose of this presentation, I will be creating a partial called ekw, which basically will call models execute_kw with database username password, because that always has to be there. And I'm also creating a method OdooGet that will take a model and domain and will return the first object matching that domain. And you can probably notice that the search read method was not introduced before, was not mentioned before. I mentioned the search method and the read method, and that's because they're used together so often that Odoo actually has a shortcut method for search read, which does both of those things together. But I'm going to make it even shorter, and I'm going to create Odoo get method. So let's proceed with the live demo. For the purpose of this presentation, I have created a product called Good Vibes, because every big event like this needs a lot of good vibes. And I'm going to now obtain this product in the command line. So let's proceed. Is the font size okay for you? Yes? Big enough? Okay. So let me first paste all the boilerplate that I just mentioned. I'm using the local host instance of the Odoo. It's hosted here on this laptop. The database is OXP 2024. The username is admin, password is admin. This can be either an actual password for the user, or it can be an API key that is generated in Odoo. That is actually the preferred method. Then I'm importing the server proxy, creating the one for common, obtaining user ID, creating the one for models, creating the partial that I mentioned, and creating the Odoo get method. So let's now actually obtain the product. It is called Good Vibes. So I'm going to use the Odoo get method with a model called product, and the domain is name equals good vibes. And let's see if it works. Yes, so this is the dictionary that represents a single product in Odoo. You can see there's a lot happening here, but let's check the field that is most interesting for us, which is how many good vibes we have right now. And the field is called quantity available. And we have 0 good vibes, which is not nearly enough good vibes for the event like this. And you can also notice that in the Odoo instance, in my local host instance, sorry, you can see there are no receipts whatsoever. So we are not even expecting any good vibes. That's wrong. We need to obtain some good vibes by creating a receipt for them. So the receipt is a model called stock picking in Odoo. But before we create a stock picking, we need to know one thing about stock picking. It is the stock picking type. In this case, we want the incoming type because it's a receipt. So we want to accept into our inventory some good vibes. So first, I need to obtain the picking type for that. And the model is called stock picking type. And the domain that I'm going to use is code equals incoming. And yeah, we obtained the model, and we can see that it even has a name, user-friendly name, which is receipts. And in Odoo, we can see that operation types actually has a type called receipts. So we just obtained that in our command line. So now let's create an actual picking, stock picking, so that we can receive some good vibes. And now instead of using Odoo get, I'm actually going to use the execute kw method, which I created partial for. So execute kw stock picking. And the list of arguments contains a dictionary of, in this case, the only required field is picking type, ID, sorry, because we are operating with IDs, not with objects here. And it is going to be the receipt type ID. And there is a error. All right. Of course, I forgot to use the method. So we are calling a method on stock picking, right? And the method is called create because we want to create a new object. So we are creating a new object with only one field set, stock picking, so picking type ID equal to receipt ID. And now that works. And it returns an ID. And if I go now to our overview, you can see that here we have one stock picking created, and one receipt created. And it's in draft, and it has the correct operation type. It has a scheduled date that we might want to edit, but that's all that we had to pass to that method, just the stock picking type. So now let's edit this to change the schedule date. So execute kw again. Stock picking is the name of the model. To edit, we need a method called write. And now, as the list of arguments, first we pass the IDs of objects that we want to edit. In our case, it's receipt ID. And now the arguments are going to be scheduled date. And the value is going to be, let's say, 2024, October 15th, 17, 0, 0. Okay, again. Right, I forgot to close this one. My bad. True, this time I got true. And let's see if the method worked, if we actually have a new scheduled date. So let me refresh this page. Yes, it happened. So you can notice two things. First, I'm not using datetime objects, I'm using strings to operate with dates. And second, I set this to 5 p.m. and it became 7 p.m. That's because all the dates are in UTC and Belgium is UTC +2. So now one more thing that we actually need is a product line here. So we need a product line for good vibes, because right now this is an empty picking, an empty receipt. So this will result in nothing. So let's create a stock move. That's what the object is called. Equals AKW. Create. This time I will remember. And what do we need? We need a product ID. And that's going to be the product that we already obtained, so product, our good vibes. Then we need the stock picking ID. So, and that's going to be our receipt ID. And we also need to know how many good vibes do we want to order. In our case, it's going to be the field is called product unit of measured quantity, and let's say that we want 1000 good vibes, and that looks like everything that we need, but that will actually fail, and I'm doing this on purpose so that you can see how it looks like when it fails. It will fail because we have not defined the location. Stock move in logistics has to be from one location to another. Actually, in this case, only the source location is required. So we need to obtain a location first, and I will use Odoo get again to obtain model stock location using the domain usage equals supplier. And let's see if it actually worked. Yeah, so the location is called vendor, so this is from where we receive products. And now I can call this one again, this time passing a location ID. It's location ID. And I will let you in on a little secret here. There's one more field that a stock move needs. It's a field called name. You will probably not see it very often. It's kind of handled in the background mostly for reference purposes, but it has to be there. So without the name, it will also fail, so I'm going to add the name already, OXP. And you can see that I have obtained the move ID, and if I go to the browser, there is a product line for good vibes demand 1000. So what I would like to do now is I would like to click that mark as to do button, but in the command line. So let's proceed with that. Again, the partial execute KW. The model is stock move, stock picking. The method, now we actually get to call a custom method from a model. So the write and create methods, those are the ORM methods. And now I'm going to call the method from stock picking, which is action confirm. And the arguments are, well, I need to know which receipt I'm confirming, so receipt ID. True, so that worked. Let's see if it actually worked. Yeah, mark as to do turned into validate. So now I want to click that button again. And if you see that the first one was called action confirm, then the next is going to be called button validate. And let's see if it worked. Yep, it's done. The stock picking is done. And the product dictionary that we obtained is static, so it will not get updated on its own. So if I want to check if we now have any good vibes in our stock, I need to retrieve it again. So good vibes, product quantity available, 1000 good vibes, and if I go to the browser, to the good vibes product page, and I refresh, you can see that we have on hand 1000 units of good vibes, which is exactly what we wanted. But that was a very straightforward example of creating a single stock picking for a single product and approving, editing one thing, validating and approving. So your day-to-day operations are probably going to be more complicated than that. So where can you read more about that? Where can you find more information? How did I know, for example, that the product line is stock move and not stock move line, for example? How did I know that the first click is action confirm and the other one is button validate? Do we have a technical documentation for all of this stuff? To answer that last question, we don't, unfortunately. But there are other ways how you can obtain that info. So first of all, you can download the source code of Odoo, because Odoo is open source. How awesome is that? So you can run Odoo like I am doing right now on your own laptop, and you can play with it, modify it, whatever. You can check the structure of models, the dependencies between models. You can check our test cases. You can learn a lot from that. But that is, of course, quite time consuming. So are there any other options that you can use? And yes, there are some quick wins here. So first thing that you can do is use debug mode. Debug mode basically means that you append debug equal 1 to the URL. You can do it manually, or you can use a plugin that I'm just going to use right now. And actually, let's show the example of a receipt. So if the debug mode is activated, you will notice a lot of question marks. And if you hover those question marks, you will be presented with a lot of useful information. For example, the receive from field is actually called partner ID. The model is stock picking because we are right now in a stock picking view, but the relation is res partner. So if I wanted to set a partner to receive this product from, I should be looking for a res partner model, and then I should set it as the partner ID field, which I probably should have done for any receipt because we need to receive it from someone. For example, we can also check that this field is product ID, which is no surprise, but the model is stock move. So that's how we can easily check that this list is a list of stock moves and not, for example, stock moves lines or stock quants. So that's one thing that the debug mode is very, very helpful. I recommend it. And one more thing that you can do is, well, you can basically inspect the code, which probably is not that helpful if you already have debug mode active, but you can, for example, create a new receipt and inspect this button, and you will see that, sorry, my bad. You will see that this button has a type object and name action confirm. In case the button's type is object, the name is going to represent the method that is going to be called on that object. So you can just investigate like this, and if you are checking the, if you are inspecting the code of the front-end side, there is also another plugin that you can use. It's called Owl DevTools, which basically is more for the JavaScript layer of Odoo. What we've done today is totally in the back-end area, but it shows you the structure of this view, and you can also, for example, check that this thing here is called stock move x to many fields. So, and the string here is stock move. So that gives you a hint that you are dealing with. I'm not sure that the font size is big enough, but you can see that this is a stock move object, for example. So that is another tool that you can use while working with Odoo, and if you don't want to investigate the entire code base. So these are the plugins that I have mentioned, Owl DevTools and Odoo Debug. Both of them are available for free. And I would highly recommend also watching other tech talks at Odoo Experience. This is a screenshot from the last year where Arnold and William presented the structure of models in logistics, explained what is the difference between stock move and stock move line and stock quant. So there are plenty of talks like this at every Odoo Experience, so I highly recommend attending them. There's a link below, and there's the same link is also in the question pad. And while we do not have the technical documentation, we still have a user documentation, which you might also use to check how certain processes in logistics work. This area here in the middle, supply chain, inventory, manufacturing, barcode, that's us, that's logistics. So if you are looking for some extra info, if you are stuck, I know maybe this will be the place where you will find the missing piece for the puzzle. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you will enjoy the rest of Odoo Experience. And yeah, if there are any questions, I will be glad to answer them now.
Hi, Powell. Thank you for this presentation.
Thank you.
We are waiting for the first question to be typed because I assume people are looking forward for the after party, maybe. But let's jump on the first one that just appeared. Is there a way to upload binary data to Odoo via RPC to create an attachment, for example? What's the alternative?
So as far as I know, I am quite new to RPC itself because I normally as a backend developer I don't use it. I call methods on models directly, but in Python code I mean. But I think that binary data would might be transformed to some kind of string representation and then posted via RPC anyway. Because I know that the product. Maybe let's. I mean, I don't remember the name of the field, but I think there is a field in the product that is responsible for the photo, the picture of the product, and that is basically binary data. So it is encoded, and it is. I would bet that it is possible to set fields like that as well. I don't know if specifically the example of an attachment, but I would guess that yes.
Okay. Someone is asking, you can do everything at once.
Everything at once, you mean create and approve and validate a single stock picking?
To be defined. Let's
not as far as I know. I think this process takes a few steps. So yeah, just experiment and see what errors will you get, I guess. Yeah, I haven't tested it like that. All
just
at once.
precised create picking and lines.
Sorry?
He just precised. Can you do everything at once? Create picking and lines.
Okay. So stock picking and the move line. Again, being quite new to RPC, I have not encountered this before. I'm pretty sure that it would actually require. So the way it's usually created in Odoo tests, if you take a look, it's that we create a parent model, in this case stock picking, and at the same time we create the stock moves or stock move lines using a separate method call. So it's like one call to create with nested calls to create the one call to create the picking with nested calls to create the stock lines, stock move lines. I am not sure if you can create this the same way with RPC, or is it actually required to call this in two steps, one to create a move and one to create a picking.
Okay, someone is asking, can we download a report with RPC?
Download report?
Download a report with RPC.
That's a great question, because this is something that I was also asking myself, and the only thing that I've noticed for the while working with RPC for this presentation is that the edit methods, like the method calls, return whatever the method returns. So I guess the method would have to return that data in some kind of binary form, and then you can download it. But again, I have not tested it in any way. I mean, I have seen that a correct edit returns true, and a call to a method returns whatever the method returns. If it's none, then it returns none. So if you manage to find a report method that actually returns the report as a file, then you could probably extract it from the dictionary. But that would be my best bet here.
Okay. Thank you. In scenarios where we have a scheduled script or a third-party app, how could we efficiently handle authentication, for example, avoiding to log in anytime we are triggered or getting changes from Odoo?
I see that.
Or in Odoo? How to handle authentication?
Well, in terms of authentication, I know that you can create and then revoke API keys in Odoo. I am not sure at this point if you can, for example, assign permissions to those keys to but you can actually create a separate user, and then that user will have a specific permissions, and then you can create a API key for that user and use it to authenticate instead of using admin as I did, because I just did it for the purpose of simplicity. You should never do that. So I think that you could do that with user management and generating proper API keys, if that answers the question, I hope.
Okay, so the next question, I hope I get it right, but I think is asking, does using Portal to execute KW can improve API performance? And if not, is there a way to improve performance?
So in my case, the partial I created was just for the purpose of simplicity. I was just tired of typing model execute KW database username password because it's just too much. So I also wanted to value our time here, and I didn't want to type that thing over and over again. So that was the only reason I created a partial. I have not I don't believe it will have any impact on performance, this particular partial. And how to improve performance, the other part of this task, well, the API itself, I guess I'll use all the good practices that that are there for the for working with Odoo models. So for example, remember that Odoo batches stuff, and you should not like call update queries one by one, but more like in batch to let the framework handle it efficiently. I think there are also other talks, like the previous one at least, dedicated to improving performance. So I hope that people attended those as well, and the answers will be found during those talks.
Okay, and one last question. How to prevent fields from updating via RPC, like sales price or of a sales order?
How to prevent updating fields, but I mean, if it's a publicly available method, then it will be callable via RPC. So I'm not sure what do you mean by preventing.
Maybe the person can come closer so that we can clarify this question. And do we have time enough for one question? I assume yes. Can we use those API in any case for anything, validation process, etc.?
It can be used, as far as I know, for any public method that a model has, and this method does not have to be even prepared in a special way. As long as we put a method on a model and it's public, then it will be available for RPC users, and that is something to keep in mind when you are adding public methods, because you need to make sure that whatever this method does has to be safe to be called in isolation, so it will not just be something that people can call on the website by clicking one button after another in a specific state, but this is something that can be called directly from now on. So as far as I know, you can call everything that is a public method.
Okay. Well, thank you, Paweł. And for the remaining questions, please come closer so that we can answer to them, because we need to close the talk. Thank you for your attention. Thank you, Paweł.